Hello writers and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be talking about a tip that I think everyone could use, especially if you've been having writer's block recently or you're just kind of afraid to start. Now this tip is really simple and all you need is a notebook and or a laptop computer. And there's two ways to accomplish this tip. I personally prefer the second method, so make sure you stick around to see both of those. So first we're going to talk a little bit about writer's block. Now what is it that makes it so that writers just can't get anything done?
It seems like every writer I talk to these days is super stressed about something. So here's a 15-second montage of adorable dogs to brighten your day and relieve some stress. Alright, now let's talk about writer's block.
Personally, I think it's a mix of a few things. Sometimes life outside of writing is just a little bit too overwhelming and we just can't get around to writing, and there's nothing wrong with that. The second thing that contributes to writer's block is just a fear of failure. We don't want to get started writing because we know it's not going to be perfect, and if it's not perfect, we don't even want to start it in the first place. This is kind of combined with the fear of judgment. We care about what other people think of us, and we're afraid that when they read what we've written, and it's not perfect, they're going to judge us for it. The last thing I think that contributes is just problems with a current project. Maybe it's just a bit too overwhelming, it's so much that you have to get done and you're not ready to start it, or maybe you're just bored of it because you've been working on this project for so long. But I think the biggest one is that second one I mentioned, and to sum it up, here's a quote by Roy Blount Jr. He says, "I think writer's block is simply the dread that you are going to write something horrible." I think all of us can relate to that, and I think I have a tip that will help you get over this fear. I think another quote adequately sums up the solution to this problem, and this quote is by Barbara Kingsolver. She says, "Close the door. Write with no one looking over your shoulder. Don't try to figure out what other people want to hear from you. Figure out what you have to say." Alright, here's the part of the video where I actually give you the tip, so make sure you're paying attention. All you need is to get a notebook, go to the front of this notebook if it has a little cover, write on the cover, just label it Bad Writing. That's the name of this notebook. Next up, open it to the first page. On this first page, just write the words, "No one ever has to read this." The next step, write. Just write whatever you want. Write poems that are just horrible and cringy, write short stories, write full-length novels if you feel like it. Do whatever you want, but write it knowing that no one else has to read it. Because for a lot of us, the pressure is, oh, this has to get published, or I have to have people read this, or I'm going to read this later on, or whatever. Make sure this notebook is a place where you will write something with the thought that no one is ever going to read this. For the most part, this is just to get you writing again. The same thing can be done on a computer. All you have to do is go to your desktop or wherever you keep your documents, create a new folder, call it the same thing, maybe Bad Writing, and then every time you open up a new document, just write, "No one has to read this." And that's the same thing with the notebook. Just make sure every entry you start with, no one has to read this. That way, every time you sit down to write at this notebook or on this Word document, that you know that no one has to read this and there's no pressure. You can just write whatever you feel like writing. So why does this work for me and how can it work for you? Well, the first important thing is that you've labeled it Bad Writing. So already there's no fear of failure because you've already declared it a failure. So anything otherwise, if it's a good piece of work or whatever it may be, great. If it does suck, then well, you've already said that. You've already got that out of the way and there's no need to worry about it. If you're like me, you someday want to get published, and so whenever you sit down to write a short story or a novel, you're thinking, what will publishers think? Well, if this is in a notebook or in a document that no one's going to read, there's no pressure like that. You're just writing, just for the heck of it. I'm going to throw a third quote at you, and I think this kind of summarizes why this works. When I'm writing, I write. And it's as if the muse is convinced I'm serious and says, okay, okay, okay. That's pretty much it. Just create for yourself a space where you can write stuff without any judgment, without any fear of other people reading it, or even yourself. For me, I put a time limit on this notebook and this Word document. I say, unless it's been at least maybe 8 weeks, I'm not going to read anything in this. I'm just going to continue to write and not worry about other garbage writing I've already written. Hopefully this helped you guys. Thank you so much for watching at the end of the video. If you want to get featured on the Writer Left Instagram account, which has, I think we're at like 48,000 followers right now, just leave a comment below saying what you want me to make another video about, and just put your Instagram handle at the bottom of that comment. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.